Hi guys, my name's Ian Whitaker and I run the Anton Reiche unofficial fan page on Facebook, and I'm also the editor of the World Chocolate Awards, which is basically an encyclopedia about everything to do with the history, production and natural history of chocolate, along with an awards for the world's finest chocolate. But this video is about taking photos of antique chocolate molds, and the reason I'm doing it is because I receive a ton of photos which are effectively useless, asking me to evaluate antique chocolate molds. And I also see online possibly valuable chocolate molds for sale. And the photos there are totally inadequate for anyone who knows what they're looking for, who is looking to buy a chocolate mold. And so this can impact selling a chocolate mold. You just won't be able to sell it, or maybe someone might buy it who isn't quite well upon chocolate molds. That's possible. But no one who really knows molds will buy a chocolate mold without these photos, which I'm going to explain now. So here's a list of several mistakes people make when taking photos of molds, either to sell or for evaluation. The first thing you should do is do not have the camera in your hands. Put the camera down and put it on a 3, 5, 10-second timer. That means there's no movement in the camera. You'll get an absolutely crisp photo. You can't believe how much difference that makes to the quality of a photo. And the second thing I would say is you need daylight, whether it's next to a window or several windows. You just need great daylight. You can put the interior light on as well. And when you've got lots of light, it doesn't matter if you've got a shadow coming from one side. In fact, it can be very helpful to highlight those recesses where you have stamps, especially very faint stamps of the chocolate mold maker, because some of them are extremely poorly stamped, and I get sent photos which I can possibly see something in, and it's very hard to make out. So take photos, one, in absolutely bright light, which includes daylight, and it can be outside in that light. And then second, perhaps in the doorway with daylight coming in, or next to a window with the light off inside, so you get that shadow coming from one side. So those two types of photos are especially important when the stamps aren't very deep. If the stamps are deep and you can see things in broad daylight and bright light, then just go for the bright light photos. The third mistake people make when taking photos of antique chocolate molds is they have their fingers on the side of the mold to hold them, or they leave the clips on. Now, clips are almost worthless. They are nice to have, but no one really cares about the clips. What we care about is what the mold looks like. The clip can be hiding damage. It could be hiding very important information, important stamps on the side of the mold. And anyone into antique chocolate molds really wants to see any information, any damage on the sides of the mold. So get rid of the clips. You can put them to a side and show them in the photo if you want, but please, no clips and no fingers obscuring part of the mold. It's really important. Point 4 is a little bit time consuming, but we do need photos of the inside and the outside of the front and the back. The condition inside and outside is super important. For example, if the condition inside is smooth and like a mirror finish, the mold can actually be used to make chocolates or candles or soap or any other application. So that changes the value, especially for some collectors. You also want to consider taking a photo looking down on top of the mold and up, if it's a figure, for example, looking at the end of the feet of the mold, and then from the sides. So basically you can see if the back and the front are aligned, because what we don't want is to have misalignment and waves in the edges between the back and front of the mold. So any avid or savvy collector is wanting to see that. So if you put that in information there so they don't have to ask, that can help them make a decision and it can also show that your mold is worth a lot more. And in particular, you do have to make sure that you show the numbers stamped on the front and the back parts of the mold if they are there. If they're not, then these photos showing like from the side, so you'd be looking this way at the side of the mold at the top, are even more important because you want to be sure that they align. My fifth tip is that it's no coincidence that Amazon and eBay recommend white backgrounds and they try and insist on them wherever possible. I would say go for a white background, either a white bed cover, a few sheets of white paper. Anything white will really highlight the edges of the mold and help people to see exactly its form, and bring a lot more light into the picture because the white reflects the light. Point 6, remove any dirt, but the most important thing when removing dirt is not to damage the mold. That's even more important than removing dirt. It's better to leave the dirt than to damage the mold in effect. So if in doubt, do leave it. But what I recommend is a warm, damp cloth and rubbing away anything that looks, for example, like it could be rusty, it could be chocolate. So someone buying the mold really wants to know if there's rust or if it's just chocolate. Obviously, if it's chocolate, even if you can't get it all off, it will come off on the cloth and you'll be able to see that, especially if the cloth is warm. So don't use any cleaning agents, no washing up liquid, which for example has salt in it, which is an abrasive. Just use a very gentle microfiber cloth and rub anything off, and make sure afterwards that the mold is dry. If you do want to protect your mold afterwards, you can put a little bit of olive oil or cooking oil on the mold just to help to seal it up from the air. But that's optional. The seventh mistake I see people make all the time is they're using Zoom on their phone. Just put the item closer to the phone until you can't get any focus. Zoom deteriorates the quality of the image, so it doesn't really do anything. You may as well send a photo to someone or put a photo online and people can just zoom into that photo, because you're doing exactly the same usually with the typical cell phone camera. So don't use Zoom, move the item closer, and if you've got those great light conditions which I explained earlier, and you leave the camera untouched while it's snapping the photo, you'll be surprised at the level of clarity you can achieve. Okay, we've reached the end of my list, so I thank you for watching, and I hope this has been useful for you and it helps you understand, even when buying molds, what you need to see in order to be sure you're getting a good deal and be sure you're getting what you're paying for before actually buying. And then if you're selling your mold, I hope it helps you sell it faster and at a better price. I also do a few other videos about antique chocolate molds. Check them out. Thanks for watching. Bye.